The sound of soft footsteps echoed down the hallway, slipping through the thin walls of my apartment like a whispered secret. Each step seemed to carry the weight of 1,000 unspoken words, a delicate rhythm that punctuated the silence of the evening. I paused, my fingers hovering over the doorknob, the faint hum of music still lingering around my neck from the headphones I had just removed. A quiet evening, I thought, looking forward to the solitude of my own space. A sanctuary from the chaos of the world outside. But as I turned the handle, I found her there, leaning casually against my doorframe, her silhouette backlit by the dim glow of the corridor light. Her jeans hung loose, the fabric soft and worn, as if they were a favorite pair that had seen countless adventures. A silk top, elegant yet understated, was tucked only halfway, hinting at a carefree nature that defied convention. Her hair, slightly messy as though she'd just stepped out of a shower, framed her face in wild tendrils that caught the light in a way that was almost ethereal. She looked up at me and smiled, a sly, knowing smile that made the air between us thrum with an unspoken tension, a tension that had been building over months of stolen glances and shared moments. "You took your time," she said, her voice a soft murmur that seemed to fill the space between us, wrapping around me like a familiar melody. I swallowed, suddenly aware of the forbidden closeness, the line we were both tiptoeing around. "Maya?" I managed, my voice betraying a mix of surprise and something else I couldn't quite name, a mix of anticipation and fear, of longing and restraint. "What are you doing here?" She didn't answer immediately, instead brushing past me with a fluidity that left her perfume trailing in her wake. A warm blend of jasmine and something else, something elusive and intoxicating, like a summer night just before the rain. I turned to watch her as she moved confidently down the short hallway of my apartment, making herself at home in a way that was both disarming and strangely comforting, as if she belonged there, as if this moment had been written in the stars long before either of us realized. "I'm here because you took long enough," she tossed back over her shoulder with a laugh, as if it was the most obvious thing in the world, her voice a light-hearted contrast to the heaviness of the moment. I closed the door behind me, the sound of it clicking shut punctuating the moment. "My name is Daniel Carter, and I'm a 35-year-old architect. I'm supposed to be designing spaces, creating order out of chaos, but right now all I can think about is the chaos of my own emotions. Maya is my neighbor, a 32-year-old writer with a penchant for turning words into art and making the mundane seem extraordinary. She's lived across the hall for the past year, and in that time we've exchanged more than just pleasantries. There's always been something simmering below the surface, a tension that neither of us dared to articulate. I followed her into the kitchen, watching as she opened the fridge and peered inside, her laughter a soft ripple in the otherwise quiet apartment. The light from the refrigerator cast a soft glow on her face, highlighting the curve of her cheek, the arch of her brow, a portrait of effortless beauty. "You're not going to find much in there," I said, leaning against the counter, trying to mask my curiosity with a semblance of nonchalance, though my heart betrayed me with its quickened beat. Maya turned to face me, a bottle of sparkling water in hand. "You really should stock up on more than just the essentials, you know?" she teased, taking a sip, the corners of her mouth quirking up in amusement, her eyes sparkling with a mischief that I found both endearing and unsettling. "And you should really explain why you're here," I replied, crossing my arms, trying to ignore the way her presence seemed to fill the room, making it both smaller and infinitely more expansive at the same time, a paradox that mirrored the confusion in my heart. She set the bottle down, her expression shifting slightly, a serious note threading through the playful banter. "I had a feeling you might need a friend tonight," she said simply, her eyes meeting mine, and in that moment, I could see the truth of it. I'd been feeling off, the pressures of work and life closing in, and somehow, she'd sensed it. Her intuition was uncanny, a gift that seemed to transcend the ordinary bounds of understanding. The air between us crackled with potential, with the things left unsaid. I wanted to reach out, to close the distance, but there was a line. A fragile, invisible line that we both knew was there. A line that, once crossed, would change everything. It was a line drawn in the sand of our lives. A boundary that kept us safe yet unfulfilled. A barrier that simultaneously protected and imprisoned us. Maya seemed to sense my hesitation, and she stepped closer, her gaze never wavering. "It's okay, you know," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "To let someone in." Her words hung in the air, a gentle challenge that made my heart skip a beat, a dare wrapped in compassion, an invitation to vulnerability. I nodded, unsure of what to say, the fear of losing everything warring with the desire to let go, to see where this might lead. Words felt inadequate, clumsy tools for conveying the depth of emotion swirling within me, a storm of hope and fear, of desire and doubt. We stood there for a moment, the silence heavy with possibilities, until she looked away, breaking the spell. "Come on," she said, a smile playing on her lips as she gestured toward the living room. "Let's sit. You can tell me about your day." Her voice was a lifeline, a reminder that amidst the chaos, there was still a thread of normalcy, a tether to reality. I followed her, the distance between us both a comfort and a torment. We settled onto the couch, the city lights spilling in through the windows, painting patterns on the floor. The city outside was alive, a symphony of distant traffic and muted voices, a reminder of the world beyond these walls. I talked, words tumbling out in a rush, the stresses of the day, the projects looming overhead. Maya listened, her presence a steadying force, her laughter a balm against the chaos, a reminder that amidst the storm, there was calm, a beacon guiding me through the darkness. As the evening wore on, the conversation turned lighter, stories and laughter weaving together, filling the space with warmth. But beneath it all, there was still that undercurrent, that unspoken understanding that this was something different, something more. A connection that defied simple explanation, a bond that was both fragile and unbreakable. At one point, Maya reached out, her fingers brushing against mine, a hesitant touch that sent a jolt through me. I looked at her, really looked, and saw the same wariness, the same longing mirrored back at me. Her eyes were a mirror, reflecting my own fears and hopes, a window into a soul that resonated with mine. It was a moment suspended in time, a crossroads where we could either step forward into the unknown or retreat back into the safety of what we knew. The air was thick with anticipation, a breathless pause in the narrative of our lives, a moment where the future was both a promise and a mystery. I wanted to say something, to articulate the swirl of emotions, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I squeezed her hand gently, a silent acknowledgement of the line we were skirting around. A line that was both a barrier and a bridge, a threshold to a new beginning. Maya smiled, a soft, understanding smile, and shifted closer, her shoulder brushing against mine. "You're not alone, you know," she said, her voice a quiet reassurance that wrapped around me like a warm embrace, a promise that resonated deep within my soul. The fear of losing everything, of jeopardizing this fragile balance, still lingered, but in that moment, it didn't seem to matter. There was something more important, more real, a connection that defied explanation, a bond that transcended the ordinary, a promise of what could be. As the night deepened, the conversation ebbed and flowed, the silences between us speaking volumes. And though nothing was resolved, nothing was definitively changed, there was a new understanding, a redefined reality where the lines were still there, but the fear of crossing them was tempered by the possibility of something more, a possibility that shimmered with the promise of a new dawn. Finally, as the clock ticked toward midnight, Maya stood, stretching with a languid grace, her movements fluid and unhurried, a dance that was both farewell and an invitation. "I should go," she said, her voice carrying a hint of reluctance, a note of unfinished business. I nodded, standing as well, the moment feeling both like an ending and a beginning, a moment that was both goodbye and hello. "Thanks for coming by," I said, the words inadequate but heartfelt, a simple expression of gratitude that carried the weight of 1,000 emotions. She smiled, a soft, enigmatic smile that promised more than it revealed, a smile that held the promise of tomorrow. "Anytime, Daniel," she replied, and I knew she meant it. Her words a promise that echoed in the chambers of my heart. We lingered at the door, the space between us charged with all the things left unsaid, a silence that was both comforting and challenging. And then she was gone, her footsteps echoing down the hallway, leaving me alone once more, but with a new sense of hope, a new understanding of the fragile, beautiful complexity of what lay between us. The relationship was not resolved, the lines not fully crossed, but the dynamic had shifted. A new reality where the unspoken was acknowledged, where the fear of losing was balanced by the possibility of gaining something infinitely more precious. It was a new beginning, a dawn breaking on the horizon of our lives, a promise of what could be. And as I stood there, the scent of jasmine still lingering in the air, I realized that maybe, just maybe, that was enough, a realization that was both terrifying and exhilarating, a whisper of possibility carried on the wings of hope.